connect and collaborate and go to meeting, perhaps big blue button, they have certain functionalities beyond FaceTime or Skype that you can use. So one thing, for example, and this helps with flow as well, is you can create these templates that just allow you to very easily switch. This is effectively changing the room layout virtually at the click of a button. Thank you. So you can see my my handsome speaker here a little bit larger now. Okay, now we do have a different chat window, so anything we chatted in earlier now is entered separately in this one. But the participants pod is very useful in here as well. I have a. You would have seen me doing this at the beginning. We have this in Adobe Connect. There's an audio setup wizard. It's a bit of a pain because you've got to go through it every time, but it's useful to make sure that the mic works and the camera works and that people can see and hear. Because obviously in face-to-face teaching, we can all see and hear each other because we're in the same space. Now Ivan can only hear you.
Yeah, I imagine nice room with the catering and everything.
Right, I'm going to shut up because we've already cut into the rest of the time. Martin, would you like to? I'm going to unmute you. Would you like to bring your webcam in? Right. You might need to.
Audio. Can you
There we
hear
go.
me clearly now?
Yes, we can.
Perfect. That's good. Okay. So would you like me to say a few words? I see I'm not in very good focus. I'm sorry about that. That seems to be in the nature of things. My name is Martin Rich. I'm at Cass Business School. Bob approached me way back and said, would I be available for remote access to this seminar? And I said yes. I'd figured out this was a week when in fact I absolutely needed to be in London. I needed to be around. And I was just going to highlight, just to give some background, a couple of reasons why I need to be, why I'm stuck in London. In a way, it's a pity because it looks like a fantastic conference. I'm sorry not to be there in person. But first of all, this is assessment week. So after this, I'm going to go off and talk about some very interesting, innovative stuff we're doing about assessment of first-year undergraduates with one of our external examiners. Secondly, just yesterday afternoon, I was doing a taster lecture for students who are thinking about filling in their UCAS form, sorry, potential students filling in their UCAS form. And just to add a little bit of work-life balance, if I'm around at home on a Thursday afternoon or early Thursday evening, then something else I do is I go off and play the piano, because that's actually a fantastic stress buster, and it's something which I'm not by any means expert. I wouldn't even dream of doing it in public, but it's something good to do. So that's why I'm starting in London. But I have some experience. I've used this technology. I've used it for revision classes. I also started off way back with getting students from different parts of the world to interact with one another using email. So I actually thought I would ask Ivan a sort of wide open question, because I know that what you do, Ivan, with aerospace degrees is a bit different from what goes on in most academic courses. And I'm interested in, how did you make sure that the technology was right for the pedagogic requirements of your course? How do you make sure those two fit? Wide open question.
Yeah, great, Martin. Thanks for this kind introduction and the question itself. Well, part of my background is IT, and I'm sure that to make sure that the technology is right, it also pays back if you put a little bit of attention to the scholarly research about the blended learning, about the internet-supported or technology-supported learning themselves. classes like that available at City University, and I'm sure in other institutions, help to give you deeper knowledge, because we all think that we are experts of technology nowadays. We are using our WhatsApps, we are using our smartphones, but usually it's not that simple. And that was reflected in my genuine interest to use this technology, but then approaching Dominic, who actually grounded me and said, okay, whoa, wait, we have to think of these aspects. So I would say a word of caution for everyone, including me. Let's not assume that what we use on a smartphone is going to help us always and 100% in this particular context. So I would make a conservative approach initially, and that was my learning outcome from interaction with Dominic from the day zero of this particular exercise. That being conservative in trying, in seeing what to achieve, pays back. Otherwise, we can get stuck in a huge knot that is very difficult to untangle. Yeah.
Thank you, Ivan. I was going to, Dom has just suggested asking the audience, so I was going to just send out to the audience, questions sent out to the audience. Can any of you see opportunities for bringing in outside speakers remotely, or have you done it already? Have you done similar things already involving outside speakers? I can see the catch box.
You can see the catch box, and there we go, we've got one. Can I pass it gently to you?
Just off the screen now.
Yeah, so we've done some similar things in a slightly different context. So I'm from the Open University, so our students aren't in the same room. So we have had external seminar speakers, if you like, for our MSc students in the evenings. People in their office in another university, and to our students at home. Yeah, sorry, yes. In that case, they're across different cities, different countries. In their own home.
What do you see the key is to making it work?
The key is to make it work. Yeah, that's why I have reservations about Adobe Connect myself. In what way? It's based on Flash. And many students' computers, particularly some of our more conservative students, don't like enabling security risks on their computer. I think it's perfectly designed for things like this, where you've got one remote speaker pertinent to classrooms. I'm not quite sure it's that well designed for where the students are dispersed. Things like Blackboard Collaborate do seem to have much more per user interaction. This is more, in my opinion. You can see how this works for a big multinational company where the CEO wants to give presentations to his dispersed workforce. Getting many-to-one communications going the other way is a bit harder sometimes. It's my individual views that I perhaps should have remembered this was being recorded before I said.
Thank you.
Sorry, I'm tapping the microphone as well. That's probably really annoying you.
No, I just wondered what it was, and more or less figured it out. So no, it's not annoying at all. It's just it's more curious. Comments? Yes, my immediate thing is that what you said about Flash almost exactly duplicates almost exactly the same words were used in a meeting earlier on this week, which I was at, where we were discussing how we can use this, how we might use this this technology in the future, and we have this curious combination that we are very interested in the pedagogic aspects using the technology, but at the same time we tend to get very wound up and very worried about very practical technical issues, such as will people accept using Flash? And okay, the issues change from year to year to year, but actually, ultimately, will somebody allow it? Will this piece of software on this computer is actually one of the classic IT problems. If you don't get that one right, then you're never going to get around it. So somehow or other, we need to be able to cope with both the whole set of pedagogic, but also technical issues. I think probably even more so for you with the OU, then you absolutely need to have tools which will run on a whole range of different devices. One of the things that we are finding is that is that we are still institutionally, despite the best efforts of people like Dom, we're still institutionally, if I'm going to be completely honest, a little bit set up on the assumption that students are going to be using computers, laptops, whatever, and they aren't. They use mobile devices. That's no criticism of our...
On their own at home, they don't have somebody like Dom to come and get it working for them, or a help desk to go to.
It's in the nature of technical progress. So it's an issue for learning techniques. It's an issue for the sector as a whole.
Can I just add in? So I really like it for this, where there's something on the screen and the students would all be in the same room, and it kind of holds their attention and they can move around kind of on it. I think probably when it's, I'm looking at an app on an iPhone, and then if I go off to try and take notes in Evernote or something and come back into it, then it's not always at the same point as you were at on the main screen on it. So I think I can imagine for people at home, then it is quite difficult, whereas maybe there's one student who isn't in the room, but it would still encourage the students to show up, which is what I prefer. I prefer them being in the room engaging, unless they're OU students, in which case they're already motivated, so it's fine.
No. Any other comments in the room? The man had a comment. That's nicely thrown. When we do this with students, they're really nervous about actually throwing this, which is quite interesting. So I'm glad to see it actually being thrown. Ivan, you had a comment you wanted to make?
Yeah, I wanted to check with Martin and with the people who already engaged in the classroom with you. Being aware of the aviation, being a global industry, we're always aware of the time zone difference, fatigue for people, and this is what we've seen also with Ed presenting, as I mentioned, after the long working day, 12 hours difference, almost midnight at his place. Martin, when you had your try, or when you put this technology or approach to use in your program, how easy or how difficult it was to coordinate the availability of people and maybe the optimum time during the day to engage with them?
It's much more difficult because, unlike you in aviation, we aren't dealing with differences in time zone all the time. And ironically, one of the most successful examples of getting people to collaborate was just way back, just using email rather than using synchronous. It's way getting to synchronous and asynchronous. And we were using asynchronous communication, and people would send some messages, and people in a different part of the world would be able to return them later on. So it becomes, well, one thing is it's a harder issue for us to do. The other thing I would say is that one of my main uses of Adobe Connect has been to offer revision classes once students have gone home at the end of term. And then I feel that I can say, look, this is going to take place at 2 in the afternoon or whatever time, or 1:20 London time. And I can actually say, I'm sorry, it may turn out in the middle of the night wherever your home country is. It's a bit tough if you actually live in New Zealand, but unfortunately, the revision class, which should be accessible from everywhere, we're going to have to deliver it according to Greenwich Mean Time, which is summertime, depending on what time of year it is.
Yeah.
And that actually tends to work. What I do find interesting, of course, is that when there's an assignment due in, we find students connecting to Zoom all sorts of strange times of day and night, even if they're in London. So it's not just the physical time zones which make a difference.
Yeah. How about the people in the classroom? Do you have any view on this the challenge of this global approach, because it's going across the boundary? Yeah.
What I find, and I think it's a generational thing, it's partly the way that technology is affecting our assumptions about the way people work, is that actually having a meeting or having a classroom session, having a session where there are 6 people in the room and 7 participants outside on Skype or Adobe Connect or whatever, is actually completely natural. I'm amazed how quickly, how easily our students became comfortable with that. It's just, yeah, we've got somebody here, we've got somebody else who happens to be coming in on Adobe Connect from Ulaanbaatar. That's why. That's just the way life is. The ones who are in London decide to come in. The ones who are elsewhere come in remotely. And in some ways, I'm staggered by how similar the discourse is between the two. The difference, which I think is very important, which again is something which you and Dom alluded to a bit earlier, is if you're coming in remotely and using the chat space, you can type something in which doesn't demand an immediate response. You can type something in, and then we can go back and look at it and come up with a reply later. So that level of asynchronicity is actually incredibly valuable.
Are you giving us a new word there, Martin?
Yeah, I completely agree with you, especially. Yeah, I completely agree with you, especially in the time where we are interrupted with different things, and we try to work multitasking. So the parking option is of a great.
So let me just focus your attention there again, gents. We've got a question from M in chat. What were the approximate class size in your sessions? This is a question that was parked a little bit earlier. I think this might have been directed at Ivan.
Well, the class that we have had hasn't been larger than, I would say, 10 people, 10, 12 maximum. What we've seen in a second session with the node chairs, it was easier to grasp the class in terms of the visual, if it's a smaller number of participants. And in the last session, it was quite early in the morning, so we had only 4 of them, but we had people in the application. So I would say it depends on the lenses that you have on your webcam, and with the catch box, with this facility, I don't think it's limitation at all in terms of capturing the voice.
So I've got a question for the audience. We've got about 2 minutes left to go now. I think in just over a minute. I got a question for the guests who are in the room with us as well. How do you think this kind of approach could apply scaled up to the larger group teaching that is common in physical campus-based universities like Aston, like City as well? What are your thoughts about applying this kind of approach in a large lecture? And show of hands, or here we go.
Really like this. Yeah, I think with this catch box, I think large class up to 100 or so is feasible, definitely feasible, because as long as you can pass this round, and the student will be happy to play with this. And yeah, it's definitely feasible. For myself, because I work in the University of London, we have big collaboration with the university in China. So like us, we fly to Beijing every month to deliver the lecture. Yeah, so with this, I think in the future we might not have to fly there. Yes. Wow, jet lag. Yeah, no, everybody suffering from the jet lag, and if we can just deliver from here, that's brilliant. I can see like today's session is almost like you are there. Yeah, like it. Almost.
Any further comments from anyone before we wrap up?
You said a question, they can vote and record a...
Yeah, so one thing I haven't mentioned with this, which is, I'll say broadly speaking, not just for... thank you very much, well remembered. So we've got these different pods. This is a particular feature of Adobe Connect. So there you go, what's the weather like today? I can reopen that one. So Adobe Connect, polling is a common feature of learning and teaching today. We use poll everywhere at City University, mobile phones in large classes, but you can get those aspects within these sorts of systems as well. Okay, I think we've run out of time. If you could thank our guest speakers, and I'm going to point the catch box at the room. Martin, Ivan, if you have any final comments for our participants, our audience here.
Martin, you first.
Okay, first, I think just in a flavour of what a valuable technology is. I hope you noticed that I was on occasions raising my hand virtually and saying I agree, just to show the flexibility of this. And I do feel we've really just scratched the surface and be open to any wonderful suggestions. It's great.
Yeah, likewise. I'm grateful for your time, and I hope we gave you some inspiration or some incentive to go this way. Our contacts are on the slides. We are happy to be part of your journey if you want. And let's
Thank you very much, gentlemen.